Hi guys, welcome to Fabrics 101. We're so glad that you've joined us today. I'm Abigail Sawyer from Blinds.com, and with me is Karen Jeske. She's our in-house textile expert with 20 plus years in the fabric industry. She has designed fabric patterns, she's created entire textile lines for several different companies, and I know you've always wondered who does this, but she actually sits on a colors council and is one of the people that helps decide what colors are in style for that season. So she definitely has a thumb on the fabrics and the textile industry. So we're about to get started, but I want to share a couple of things with you first. If you would like to see some of the fabrics that we talked about today, you can go to the event page and there's a link where you can actually order a sample pack. It's absolutely free and it'll get sent to your house and you can see all these things in person. One of the most exciting things about our Hangout today is that we're sharing a special promo code at the end that gives 20% off all fabric window coverings. So that includes draperies, Roman shades, cellular shades. It's an amazing deal. So be sure to stick around for that at the end. And we'll be taking questions after we finish our presentation. So send those in. You should see the Q&A box, and our friendly helper, Katie, will be responding to you there, but we'll also answer some on air. So send us your questions and see if we pick it. All right, so Karen, let's take it away.
Thank you, Abigail, and welcome to Fabrics 101. And what I'd like to share with you today is information about fabrics, their components, which are the fibers and yarns, the fabric construction, which is how the fabric is made, and the way that color and design is imparted into the fabric, common fabric classifications, and then we'll talk throughout the presentation about different end uses. We'll be talking mainly about home furnishings fabrics and a little bit skewed towards window treatments because that's what we know best. And let's get started with fiber. So fiber is what makes up the fabric. When you look at a tag on a piece of clothing and it says 50% cotton, 50% polyester, those are the fibers. And we're going to talk about each of the fibers individually that we use in home furnishings. There are other fiber classifications that we're not mentioning today, but we're focusing on the ones that we use the most. And sometimes they're blended together to get the best qualities of both in the fabric. So the first type of fiber classification we're going to talk about is natural plant fibers. And the first one and the most common one that we see in home furnishings and in apparel and other products is cotton. Cotton is derived from the cotton plant, and you see on the left a cotton ball, which is spelled B-O-L-L. It's used in draperies, Roman shades, roller shades, and upholstery in the home. It's very popular. It has many end uses. And this is an example behind us, and right here, one of our best-selling fabrics called Donetta, which is made out of 100% cotton. It drapes beautifully, and it's very stable and light fast, and it's a great product for the home.
Great. So when I think about cotton, I think about clothing. It's natural, it's breathable. Does it have any of those qualities when we put it on our windows?
Absolutely. It's a very insulating fabric because it has a hollow core which traps air, which is good for insulation, and it also responds to water. So water and heat are what take the wrinkles out.
So we can go ahead and use this steamer on our draperies.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Next, we're going to talk about flax and linen, and that comes from a plant that's called the flax plant. The difference between flax and linen is has a little bit more processing. It's used for draperies, Roman shades, upholstery, lots of apparel. And one thing that we say about flax and linen is that it's guaranteed to wrinkle, but in a good way. The wrinkles add to the natural beauty. The subtle flaws are part of what makes this look like a natural product, and it's part of what people love about it. But when we sell it to our customers, we do want to make sure that we understand that they understand that this is the way that this product is.
So I've seen linen a lot with French country decorating lately. It has that, little bit of a wrinkle, casual feel, and I loved when I've seen it recently. It's slip covers. It just has such a beautiful look.
It is. It's a great fabric for the home. And next we're going to talk about jute and bamboo. And we use bamboo in its natural form. basically a slice of the stalk of the plant in our woven wood shades. And this makes for a beautiful product. Bamboo has a couple of qualities that make it unique. Number one, it's the fastest growing plant on the planet Earth, and it's also one of the strongest materials that occurs in nature. So it makes for a great durable product and with just a beautiful natural feel to it.
I love woven wood shades because they let in a lot of light. You can see the holes in here, but you can also add a fabric lining if you want some more privacy or if you want it to be blackout completely.
Definitely, yep. And then jute is another natural fiber that we use in this material, which we also have in our woven wood line. You can actually see knots in it, and it also makes for a beautiful natural material in the window. Okay, next we're going to talk about a different kind of natural fiber, and that comes from animals. The most common that we know about is wool. It comes from sheared from a sheep or a similar animal. It's then spun into yarns and made into upholstery, rugs, carpet, and all sorts of different products. Yeah, and silk is another common fabric that we all love. It's very lustrous. It's not particularly light fast, so we have to make sure that we line it. It's a little bit more costly, but it's a really amazing fabric because it's actually made from the cocoon that a silkworm spins. And unraveling the cocoon, it's thousands of feet long, and it's a continuous fiber, and it makes for a really beautiful fabric. But we have to remember it is fragile.
Okay, so this tiny fiber, I can't even imagine how they weave it together, but it makes an incredible end result. So is it better for more formal situations where maybe you don't have kids or don't need something that's super durable?
It is something that is usually reserved for special clothing or home furnishings, and it's often imitated with other fibers that we'll be talking about in a moment.
Okay,
so
great. So it'll really give your room that special feel.
Yes. So the next we're going to talk about man-made fibers. So man started making fibers in the 20th century, in the early 20th century, and the most popular now is polyester, which is derived from petroleum, actually. And it's relatively inexpensive. It's known for not wrinkling. It's very durable, and it's used in many of our blinds and shades and draperies also. This is an example of a fabric that's 100% polyester. You can see it drapes nicely, and it doesn't wrinkle easily, and it's very versatile. And it can be made to look like silk. It can be made to look like wool, depending on how the material is developed.
So and then polyester is a really great way to save money if you maybe want the look of a higher-end fabric but don't want to pay quite as much.
Definitely. And then we have, we also have vinyl, which is a material that is used in our solar screens and outdoor shades, and we really appreciate the fact that it's a very stable fabric.
So when I think vinyl, I think about, you know, the kind of faux leather that's on the back of a booth seat at a restaurant. Is it always a heavier weight fabric?
It's generally heavier in weight. It's often blended with other fibers like fiberglass or polyester. And it's also used in other products that we sell, like vertical blinds, but not in a fabric form.
Great. So it's durable enough to be used for an outdoor shade.
Definitely. Yep. It holds up very nicely. And the next category we're going to talk about is rayon and cellulose. And this is made from wood pulp, similarly to the way that paper is made. And this particular fabric we're looking at is made out of cellulose mainly, and the yarns going in the vertical direction are made out of polyester to give it stability.
Great. So this is totally new to me. When I think about man-made fabrics, it's always something that seems like it's plasticky feeling, but this is so natural and you know, really doesn't seem like it's man-made.
Right. And rayon was actually called artificial silk when it was originally introduced, and it is used in many of our fabrics, but usually blended with something that makes it a little bit more stable. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about fiberglass, and that is derived from sand or silica. It's heated to a melting point and then made into a fiber. And where we use it in our line is in a vertical retardant. It's very durable. It hangs very straight, so we can make a vane out of it that's 120 inches long, and it won't twist or cut. So it's perfect for that application.
Great, so it gives you that fabric look with a little bit more durability.
Okay, so now we've talked about our main fiber categories. And now we're going to talk about the next step, which is how do we get that fiber into a fabric? And most commonly, it's by making it into a yarn. So most natural fibers are staple, meaning that they're fixed length, usually 1 to 3 inches long. And the exception to that is silk, which actually comes out as a filament, which is a continuous strand of fiber. And so yarns are either staple or filament, and any synthetic or man-made material usually starts as a filament and can be cut. And it basically depends on if you're imitating silk, you're probably going to have a filament. If you're imitating cotton or wool, you're going to cut it into a staple. Then it's spun into a yarn, and then we make the fabric. Most fabrics have yarn, but the first one we're going to talk about actually doesn't.
Great. So when we have a staple fiber, it's going to give you that fuzzier, softer feel, and maybe a filament yarn is going to be silky smooth.
Yes. So the first type of fabric we're going to talk about is non-woven, and that's actually where we go directly from fiber to fabric. And raw fibers are bonded with heat, entanglement, or chemicals to form the fabric. And an example of that in our line is actually our best-selling product, which is honeycomb shades. And this is a non-woven fabric. It's very durable and stable, and it can also be cut without fraying, which makes it perfect for this product.
So when we think about this, it's kind of like when you look at felt. That's a larger version of this, where all the fibers are tangled together, but it forms one continuous thing.
Yep, that's exactly right. And if you look at the diagram on the right-hand side of the presentation, you can see what it would look like under a microscope. The next type of fabric is the one that most people are most familiar with, and it's the most common, and that is a woven fabric. And basically what you have are vertical and horizontal yarns interlacing with each other. And the diagram that we have is a plain weave, which is the most common, but we also can make very intricate patterns by changing how the horizontal and vertical yarns, which we call the warp and the weft, interlace with each other. And then next we're going to talk about knitted fabrics. Their yarns create interlocking loops to form the fabric. If you looked at our horizontal shear very closely, it would look like what you see on the diagram if you looked at it under a microscope. But this is actually a knitted fabric, and it creates sheer in some areas and an opaque fabric in other areas. So knitting is very versatile.
I love this product. It's so different from anything you would see anywhere else. You have the sheer here and then the darker slats, and so it gives you a blind, the look of blinds, and you can tilt it to adjust your light, but you can roll it all up because it's one piece of fabric.
Yes, it's very thin and it's very stable as well.
Great.
Okay, now moving on to design and color application. The most common type of fabric you see is a solid color, and we call that a piece-dyed fabric, and the reason is because the whole piece of material is dyed after the fabric is produced. This is one example of a velvet fabric that we have in our drapery line, and it is piece-dyed. You can tell it's piece-dyed because it's the same color on the front and the back, and this technique is used even in multicolored fabrics where they've actually used different fibers in different areas of the fabric that take the dye differently. So that it is possible to have a two-color fabric that is piece dye.
That's very interesting. I guess we can kind of see that on the slide with the green fabric there. Some of the fibers take it a little bit dark.
Yep. Right. Okay, next we're going to talk about yarn dyeing, and that is where the yarns are dyed before the fabric is created. This makes a slightly more expensive fabric, and an example of it is this striped fabric that we have in our drapery line. that actually looks the same on the front and the back. And so this technique, yarn dyeing, is used for most commonly in stripes, also in plaids, and then in some more intricate patterns like the one you see in the lower right-hand corner of the slide.
So all of these new vocabulary words are totally converting me into a fabric nerd. But I can see myself now going into the fabric store and looking at a stripe, and if I turn it over, I can see, was it just printed on the front, the color, or is it actually woven in to give you a more in-depth design?
More of a permanent
exactly.
fabric. Okay, and then often the design and color is woven in, and this is often done with a yarn dye. And we have two types of looms that create intricate patterns in fabric. The first is called a dobby loom, and those will make simple patterns such as the herringbone that you see in the slide, or this step fabric that we have in our roller shade loom. So it's a fairly simple weave, but it adds a lot of texture to the material. The next is jacquard, and the jacquard loom is said to have been the first computer. Basically, the loom controls every interlacing where the warp and weft cross, and it tells it whether to raise the warp to the top or the weft to the top, and that's what creates the pattern. So in this beautiful leaf pattern, someone programmed the computer to weave the product this way, and it creates the whole pattern in this fabric is created from the weave.
Great, but before the computerized design, someone was painstakingly making sure that each fiber goes exactly where it needs to go.
Yes, actually what happened was they punched cards, and actually the computers that they had in the 1960s still had punched cards that controlled them.
That's great. So with the jacquard, one of the interesting things is that on the back, you see the reverse of the designs. This is another thing in the fabric store if you want to take a look and see what it really is.
And this makes a very high quality fabric.
Absolutely.
Okay, next we're going to talk about design and color that is printed on the surface of the fabric. And this gives us a lot of versatility. It gives us more versatility than any other type of color application method, especially now that we have digital printing where we can print unlimited colors on the surface of the fabric. And the lower left-hand image, which is the linen stripe, is actually a print-on-demand product that we don't even print it until you order it, and we print the exact size that you order for your roller shade and create the product from that. Another example of a printed fabric is a traditional drapery fabric with a leafy pattern on it that is very popular in our drapery line.
And so if you look at the back of this, you can see that it's not printed on the back. You can see it through a little bit, but it's not the full reverse like we see on the jacquard.
Yeah, you can tell it's definitely on the surface. Okay, now let's talk about some common fabric classifications. We've got starting with the most basic. Plain duck, broadcloth, or canvas refers to a very plain fabric that is very versatile. It's usually piece dyed, and it's plain or basket weave, and it's usually one of our less expensive fabrics, and people use it all the time because it blends in with the surroundings.
Yeah, and you may see this in tote bags or a lot in upholstery. It's incredibly durable and actually was used for sailboat sails because it held up to the elements so well. So if you need something that is not going to get messed up by kids or pets, then canvas is a great bet for you.
Okay, and then the next is twill, and that's made with a weave. It's a basic weave that forms a diagonal pattern. You may be most familiar with it from denim, which is usually a twill weave. You always see diagonal when you have a twill weave. And then herringbone is a variation on a twill where we reverse the weave back and forth. This is an example of a herringbone fabric that we have in our line that is made on a dobby loom, and this is also a yarn dye, and it makes for a beautiful, simple fabric.
Yeah, we've seen this everywhere now with the chevron variation. This pattern is huge, but we love the smaller, a little bit more detailed version of your Angela.
Okay, satin, sateen, antique satin. This is a compact weave with fewer interlacings between the warp and the weft, meaning that we can create a very heavy fabric, and it also creates a very lustrous surface. And you can look at this material that we make draperies out of and see that it has a lot of shine to it. Mm-hmm. And this was originally usually made out of silk, but now it's made out of all sorts of different types of fibers, including cotton and polyester.
So this lustrous fabric is beautiful for bedding, for throw pillows. It just gives a pop and makes the color look so much more vibrant for a lot of these uses.
Next is shantung. That's a woven fabric with a strong horizontal slub. Usually, originally it was made from silk, which actually naturally occurring has slubs in it, and now we can make it out of almost any fiber.
Is this what you would call maybe raw silk? Is that where it has the imperfections in it?
Yeah.
Great, that's beautiful.
Next is velvet, velveteen, and corduroy. These are woven or knitted and have a cut pile surface. Chenille is another type of material that has a similar look, but the surface texture is created in the yarn before the fabric is woven. But all of these fabrics have a lot of loft, and they're great insulators.
Yeah, so with velvet, I think about winter and you know, girls' holiday dresses and all these things. So it actually does good things for your home in the winter as well.
Definitely, if you want a very insulating drapery or Roman shade, I would choose velvet.
Great. So if you're stuck in an apartment that has terrible drafty windows, just throw some velvet drapes up there and that'll take care of you.
Next is the most popular type of botanical print right now, which is called the Jacobean botanical. It's a floral pattern that was inspired by English gardens, and we have lots of them to choose from in the line. They come in a lot of different colors and are usually printed, but sometimes they're also jacquards. Another very popular trend right now is the trellis or tile pattern. It's a basic design, and it can be embroidered, printed, it can be woven into the fabric, but this is another example right here behind us of that type of design.
So sometimes this design is inspired by Moroccan tiles. Even you'll see this shape in the windows of churches from the Gothic era, so it's been around forever, but this is really taken off now. And this fabric behind us is in the black color, but we also have it in a beautiful gold. And as you'll see on the Roman shades, whenever you use a printed fabric, if you do seams in the middle, it can cut the fabric in half. So that's just something to think about when you're choosing a print for shades. You can choose a flat design, and that'll give your fabric a continuous look as the pattern goes down.
All right, thank you. Next we have acanthus, brocade, or damask. This is a classic leaf-inspired pattern. It can be a jacquard or a printed design, and in this case, this is actually embroidered on the surface. So we have some products where the design is embellished after the fabric is created.
That's beautiful. And so we can start with anything we want and then add the design on top. That's great.
Next is a ticking stripe, and that's a very simple, usually a two-color, small-scale stripe. And a counterpart to that is the awning stripe, which is becoming more and more popular in our line right now. And this is a big, large-scale stripe that imitates what has always been popular in awnings.
Yeah, and these are beautiful for draperies. Stripes going all the way down kind of gives you a color-blocked look that's really stylish. You can even do it in the horizontal and get the stripes down your windows.
And last, we're going to talk about ikat, and it's a currently popular technique that imitates an old craft where they actually painted the design on the warp of the fabric before it was woven. So while it was on the loom, they painted the design, and then they put the weft yarns in, and that's what causes the jagged pattern. So now we're imitating that with prints, and this one is pretty special. It's a jacquard fabric, with a gold warp. So the gold yarns are going in the vertical direction. And the horizontal direction, we varied the yarns so that we get color that forms a horizontal stripe. And because it's a jacker, that's what makes the pattern. So someone who designed this really had to think through all of the different components of this material to make it what it is.
Yeah.
And when you look at the back of it, you can still see the pattern on the back. And that's how you know that it's a yarn dyed woven.
Beautiful. We're seeing this everywhere in the fashion world, and it's just as beautiful for your windows as well.
All right.
So now that we have all this new information, let's start decorating your windows, your home, if you're ready to do some upholstery. So we'll give you some things to think about if you're choosing fabrics for window coverings. So as we talked about, some weaves are more open and they actually allow more light through. So when you're choosing a fabric, think about if you want to sheer or if you want something completely blackout, maybe for a bedroom that you want to darken when you close those drapes or lower that Roman shade. As we talked about, many fabrics offer lots of insulation, like the velvet, or even heavier weight fabrics like a canvas will really keep you cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter, make your house a lot more efficient. And because there's so many beautiful color choices, think about what colors you're decorating with. You can tie those in with pillows, with upholstery, with rugs, with all kinds of different things. And because we have beautiful patterns, think about whether you want your windows to be a focal point in the room, something that the eye goes to, or maybe a neutral solid, something that's a backdrop to your decor. One of the best ways to see these fabrics in person, as we mentioned before, you can order the free sample pack that matches up with this presentation. You can also go to Blinds.com and order any fabric and have it sent to your home absolutely free. So when people order their samples, how do you decide what's right for your home? So we had a friend named Holly who was decorating. You'll see some of her photos here. She got 5 or 6 different colors, couldn't decide what to do for her beautiful bay window for draperies, and so she pasted them up for 24 hours, looked at them as she walked by, compared them to the hardwood floors, to her molding, to the wall color, and that really helped her narrow it down. But if you still can't decide, Holly had another great idea. She put the samples up on Facebook and let her friends weigh in and vote on what would be best for her home, which is so fun.
What a great idea.
Great to get some more input. But in the end, she actually just couldn't narrow it down. There were too many beautiful fabrics, so she turned one of them into pillows. So if you see something that you love in our drapery line, we can absolutely do that for you. We can send you the fabric, or we can make the pillows and have them shipped right to your home. So now it is time for questions. So we'll look to our team here who's taking them from you. Yeah.
So we got lots of amazing questions. Big thanks to everyone who submitted. I think we have time for 3 questions.
Yeah,
the first one is from Leanne Heilman. Thanks so much for writing in. She wants to know, is there any secret you can share for going bold, using bold colors on window coverings?
Sure. So when thinking about your room, and as Abigail mentioned, you might want it to be a focal point. We have lots of choices, particularly in our Roman shade line. You might want to take a look. We've arranged all of our fabrics by color and in color family, so you might think about a bold color on your drapery and a more neutral color on your blind. That is what a lot of people do because the blinds usually stay with the home when you move, and you usually take the draperies with you. And people do often want to see a neutral color on the window when they do a new home, but you can add a lot of fashion with the draperies. And that's what we often recommend to our customers, but it's a matter of personal choice.
Great. So we have another great question from Elizabeth Hobart. She'd like to know what fabric would be recommended for a family with kids or pets. Basically, what is the most durable and resistant to tearing and stains?
Probably a high polyester content is good for that. It's often washable, but do check with the fabric care instructions because that does vary. And if you add a lining to it, or anything like that, that might change whether or not you can just throw it in the washing machine. But polyester is a fairly stain-resistant fiber, and often it's blended with cotton, so you get the best of both. You get a more natural look, but you get the stain resistance, the wrinkle resistance, and the kid and pet resistance.
Yeah, even if your cat's hiding behind the draperies or your kids are playing hide and seek all around, they're not going to wrinkle.
Great. All right, we have another great question from Mary Hargrave. She'd like to know what fabric provides the best installation for draperies, so the best insulation.
Insulation for draperies. Well, one thing that you can do with draperies is add layers of liner. Most of our draperies come with an insulating liner option that you can add, and then in addition to that, you can also even add a blackout liner, which adds more insulation. So if you're adding a liner to your drapery, you don't have to worry so much about what the face fabric is. You can pick whatever you want and then add the liner that you want. But if you're going with the fabric by itself, we recommend something that has a pile, like a velvet or a thicker fabric. A loftier fabric is going to provide more insulation, and denser weave also is important. And when you order the drapery, make sure you order it to a size where you can actually pull it closed over the window, as opposed to decorative side panels.
So let's take one more. You want to go crazy?
Yeah, let's do one more.
This is from our friend Dusty Bastian. She'd like to know, they're building a new home and they're starting completely fresh with window coverings. Where do they start? How should they pick out the correct fabrics and textures for each different room? Any suggestions?
Well, I would look through home design magazines. We like to look at House and Pinterest to get inspiration and start thinking about the look that you want to achieve. Think about the furnishings in the room and how you want the windows to coordinate with that. As Abigail mentioned, all of the products on our website come with free samples. So we definitely recommend that you order as many samples as you need to feel comfortable with that decision. We also have 100 reps in our call center who can help you, including reps that will video chat with you and actually look at photographs of your home and help advise you if you're not confident. But I think when you start scrolling through our website and looking at all the fabrics that are available, you'll probably feel like you have too many choices and too many things that you love. Luckily, it sounds like you have a new home with lots of rooms to decorate. So that's a great question. Do you have anything to add to that?
One easy way to get started, we have two general categories, blinds and shades. So blinds are wonderful because you can adjust the slats and let in as much light as you want. But shades, if privacy is important to you, they can be lowered all the time and light can still come in, but you keep that privacy. So that might be one thing to think about as you're narrowing it down. Great, so thank you for your wonderful questions. If you loved this presentation, we have an incredible infographic that puts together a lot of this information and even has more recommendations about how to use certain patterns, their history, where they came from. Did you know that velvet was popular in the 90s because Princess Diana wore it to a ball? Who knew these things? Maybe you did if you're a little bit older than me. So, as promised, we have a special promo code just for you guys. So it's I Heart Fabrics 14. This is only good until Tuesday, but it gives you 20% off of any draperies, Roman shades, cellular shades, pleated shades, anything fabric on Blinds.com. So again, that's I Heart Fabrics 14. So give that a try. And this recording will be on YouTube. We're adding the slides to SlideShare. But if you have any questions, anything that we didn't answer, please leave it on the event page or tweet us at Blinds.com. We'll be there to answer your questions. So thank you for tuning in and have a good one.
Bye.